He can't hear you. He probably has no idea what he's doing.
So what else is new?
I better get up there.
Now, I want to be clear, I love this show, and I expressed as much last week by basically gushing over the payoff and culmination of a seasons-long narrative thread that brought Ben face to face with his toughest challenger yet, and how it progressed his character arc in the understanding that being a hero is risky and you can never be unprepared. But to go from the excellence of that to this, I'm scratching my head over who thought placing a speed bump on the road to success was a smart idea.
Who's the dumbass?
Whoa! Hey, how about a little professional courtesy here?
What's that, dumbass?
Say it again.
You want me to?
I dare you.
Dumbass.
I enjoy the premise of this little side quest, but ultimately it has little to no bearing on the overarching thread of this season, which is disappointing coming off the heels of Season 2.
You had one, Joe. Just the one.
I understand that that's never been the case with the classic Ben 10 series, as anything integral has played out over the entire 13 episode run at random intervals, but regardless, it would have been nice to kick off with something relating to this season's plot, rather than the bootleg Hypno Hustler. Alas, that's what we have for this week though, so let's welcome in the new season and get straight into it. We start this little adventure with Ben and Gwen getting a break from Max's style of living by journeying to a megalopolis mall when suddenly a group of geriatrics taking yoga to a whole new level start robbing the place and outrunning a group of guards that are roughly in their 30s at least.
Get up slow? Yeah. Just back it up. Yeah, back it up. Okay? All you're gonna do is we just back it up, okay? That's it.
Which leaves it to our plucky 10-year-old Tyke to make the save as Wildmutt, and as he goes to take them down, the wrinkly old beanbags get the upper hand on him, but the Pole Blart mole cops catch up to them and the Walking Dead manage to get away.
Son of a bitch, you're really no help at all, you know that?
Leaving Fido over here to make a quick exit and saved by Max eventually, but the guards suspect that he got on board the rust bucket, so decide to run Max off the road, leading them into a crash just to investigate the camper.
This motherfucker is locked.
I really feel like these boys need to assess how much they're getting paid and weigh it up against the effort that is required for a job like this. The next day though, Gwen and Ben traipse through the halls of the mall as Max is waiting for some parts to fix the rust bucket, and on their trek they come across a hypnosis act from Subliminal the Sensational or something of that ilk.
Who?
And Gwen coerces Ben into partaking in the act, which he does, but what starts as embarrassing nonsense takes an unsettling turn when the sub presses a dial on the side of his stopwatch and it activates an emitter that gets Ben and the other victims to comply. In this moment, the subliminal man of stature instructs each participant to do something and demands that Ben in particular become an alien, to which Gwen stops him and for fun gets Grey Matter to do her every command until he times out.
You bitch!
The next day, however, they return to the mall and see evidence of Diamond Head left near one of the rides inside of the mall, and the guards confirm that some of the mechanics inside were stolen. Ben clarifies that he's not the only Petrosapien in the universe, calling back to Tetrax from Season 1, and for now they drop the discussion, but Ben is looking visibly exhausted. Later that night, Subliminal casts his mind manipulator and Ben awakens in a trance and goes upgrade, which wakes Max and Gwen up. He leaves and heads straight for the clock tower on the mall as suddenly the fucking Air Force show up to intervene with Ben's intentions, who gets shot apart but reforms and takes over the helicopter to disable it, and manages to get closer to the clock, which he impressively flies off with and then returns to the RV using a digger, which he just about avoids crushing the RV with. The next morning, Ben wakes up to see the news reports of his antics the previous night, with Max and Gwen curious if Ben's developing a sleepwalking issue. So for now, the intention is to keep him awake until they can figure out a means to support him. Gwen takes great delight in forcing Ben to remain active, but as they close on midnight, everyone's out like a light, and Subliminal activates his sleepers again, with Ben becoming Heat Blast and is found fusing chain link together and almost kills Max and Gwen after being contacted by special forces this time, and in the melee ignites a set of propane tanks that blow part of the mall off. The next day, Gwen shows Ben footage of what he did the night before and the plot thickens for them, with the gang strolling through the halls of the mall once more, with Gwen presenting handcuffs to prevent Ben becoming an alien, which is seemingly poor timing, as Subliminal makes his intentions clear with all these parts that Ben's been stealing and fusing being manufactured to produce a larger version of his stopwatch to put everyone under his influence.
Take me to your leader.
Ben sees this and manages to get away from the blast in a confusing piece of continuity, but emerges as the only survivor survivor who desperately searches for a means to remove the handcuffs, which he manages to do and goes wildvine as it seems he's immune to the effects of hypnosis, and after a few harrowing moments he stops Subliminal in a final fight on the giant stopwatch and snaps everyone out of the trance, and we close on the gang leaving with Ben attempting to put Gwen in a trance as payback, but she tricks him and leaves Ben taking a soak in ice cream. So fuck me, that was a lot to dig into and describe, but it was one of those rare instances where I needed to for you to get a holistic understanding of what transpires, as there's a Scooby-Doo level of mystery for our younger audiences to this, but for older viewers it was a lot of busy work to fill out the story. What I would have preferred is a little more backstory to Subliminal to bolster his inclusion here. For example, I thought about the possibility of him being a background character from one of Ben's other escapades in the previous seasons who may have seen him go hero and the potential of what he could do. Then maybe he tracks down his movements over the weeks and sees what else he can transform into, and as a petty thief, maybe he could weaponize Ben to cover his tracks, as he does here with the geriatrics and partly with Ben later. Or he was an inmate who was sent away due to Ben's actions and is seeking revenge.
Revenge. I must have revenge.
These are just a few of my theories or redesigns to the plot and its antagonist's involvement to try and justify such a weak inclusion, who could do some serious damage if he tried, but as it is, I truly wish Subliminal was a little more engaging as a villain, but the only fascinating element to him is the device he carries. An aspect I would have loved a little more explanation on too, as the mechanics of the stopwatch seem alien in what it's capable to achieve, and the emitter energy was something that Ben ran from, meaning the ray must have been visible if you were facing it, so to me at least it's almost a tangible thing like the Omnitrix energy that Kevin can weaponize, and I guess you could argue it's tangible as it impacts you on a physical level, but it feels like it affects your entire body as well, as opposed to simply just the brain, which would also make sense as the victim becomes a puppet to Subliminal's whim. I don't know, there's just a fuck ton of mystery behind this episode, but what I do know is this episode was everything you could want from a break spot where we've just had a rather intense series of episodes and you want to give the audience a respite, but to kick off a new season with this makes me realise why the next episode came first in the release order.
Well, this stinks.
Overall, it wasn't a terrible addition to the series, and like I said, would have worked fine as a break between the more contextually heavy elements, but the pacing was steady, usage of the aliens was superb, the geriatrics were completely asinine, but welcomed oddly. Subliminal could have been far more engaging villain, the device was interesting, Gwen's sequence of torture was entertaining, Max was pretty useless bizarrely, and the action was decent, but if I did give ratings, I'd put this at about a 5 out of 10. I'm just grateful that at the very least we don't have to see more short stack again. Fuck. Anyway, that's going to do it from me for this week. I appreciate you dropping in. If you like it, hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe if you want to continue the journey with me as well, and until next week everyone, take care, and I will see you soon.